Evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Hope you've all had a good day. Thanks for joining in. First off, you're probably wondering where Rob is. Glasgow Rangers, as you know, Rob's a big Glasgow Rangers fan, and they are playing Dynamo Kiev in Champions League qualification this evening. So he has got the night off. So he's asked me to fill in for him. But yeah, jokes aside, I am going to be hopefully doing quite a bit of hosting myself over the course of the season and predominantly focusing on championship football. Big West Brom fan, so it makes sense. And yeah, that kind of leads nicely into tonight's show. Yeah, I'm glad to say I'm joined by two gentlemen here tonight. I've got Oliver from the Preston North End, the Butter Pie Pod. Hope I've got that right, Oliver.
Yeah, that's good.
And I've also got Mark, who's a Blackburn fan from the Blackburn End podcast. So yeah, great to have you guys join me. Thank you very much for coming on. No doubt you guys looking forward to season starting. I didn't realise you're both starting the season off, aren't you, on Friday night? So yeah, we'll jump straight into it. We'll start with yourself, Mark. And yeah, first and foremost, how is pre-season going?
No major injuries, so that's a big bonus. But I think, to be honest, the games have just been fitness. They have literally been what they've been. We've not really got many clues. It's give Eustace a chance to. Last season was just about staying up. When he came in, it was ugly. It was horrible. It seems like he's getting a way of playing in pre-season. But to be honest, the focus is on the transfer market, the outgoings and the incomings, and they're nowhere near ready right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're having a little chat, obviously, before we come on air. So I was looking at your signings earlier on today, and it does seem like you've made a few signings, but just from me personally, you know, there weren't many names on there that I'd heard of previously, and looks like you brought a couple of strikers in as well. And yeah, looking from the outside in, is that kind of anticipating that Smodics is likely going to leave in this transfer window?
I don't think the business we've done so far is related to that necessarily. I think there's been some legal issues with our owners, Venky's, whereby it's effectively, it would seem that it's costing them double when they send money over. The Indian government are having a disagreement with them right now. So they can send money over, it's just costing them an awful lot. So what they've basically done is use the Adam Water money to fund the club ticking over at the moment, which is all well and good for FFP. We're apparently going to make a bit of a profit, which is the first time in a number of years, but it's not very good when you struggle to stay up in the Championship. So what we've done is our outgoings recently have funded our incoming. So Sam Gallagher's gone out and Max Targade's come in, who's got roughly about a 1-in-3 ratio at the moment. It's been described as Rudiger Stead, similar sort of style, not amazing with the football at his feet, but in terms of in the air, is apparently unstoppable. So that's something we've lacked really for a while. And then we've got Yuki Ohashi from Hiroshima, who the bonus I think with him is he is mid-season. He's got 1-in-2 at the moment in the J League. So he's halfway through his season. So he's coming into it, should be fully fit and raring to go. Other than that, we've gone for some experience, which we've been lacking. We've got Cal McFadden's come back in, got Danny Bath and Andreas Weiermann's coming as well. But I think the business that's still to be done is we were lacking goals. Whether we've replaced that, I don't know. Smodics is going to still go out, so we need to replace him. And then for me, our goalkeeping situation has just been horrific. We had two very poor goalkeepers. One's still there, and we are linked with everybody at the minute to replace him. But yeah, we've got work to do.
Yeah, I was just going to move on. Nothing concrete then. Are we just talking just kind of paper rumours at the moment? Or is there anything that's in the pipeline you think might get done?
They're saying that the Jeffrey DeLonge is somebody who is at Go Ahead Eagles and Ajax are interested in him. YouTube, he looks okay. It looks a big, imposing goalkeeper. They're saying that they've sort of a couple of $100,000 they're haggling over at the moment. So you would imagine that's going to get done if that's the case. Similarly, they're haggling over the upfront payment for Smodics. They said it's pretty much done in terms of the overall package. It's just Rovers want more upfront because of the Venky situation at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Oh yeah, same question then to yourself, Oliver, in terms of Preston pre-season so far. I was having a look at additions Preston has made so far in the transfer window, and there doesn't seem to be very many. In comparison to Blackburn making a few new additions, there doesn't seem to be much wheeling dealing at Preston at the moment.
No, yeah, as you mentioned before, pre-season is probably just the only way to get fitness up. Actually, I think if you looked into pre-season in more of a light and you actually took it seriously and see our results, that we're losing against Southport, we're losing against Lincoln, but we're beating Fiorentina and Liverpool, then you'd be off your head. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. The setup's been pretty much the same, so I think. Ryan Lowe's going to be trying something a bit different, a new box midfield this season, rather than obviously what we usually had, which was leaving, the attacking trio quite isolated. So I felt like he's decided to back it up a bit more and bring in players obviously like Ben Whiteman and Fodanson, who's going to be obviously 2 8s in behind 2 10s. So it's looking all right. As you mentioned there's not been much wheeling or dealing going. It's well renowned. I think even every championship club knows that, we play with wing backs and we don't have any wing backs. We have, a 32-year-old Robbie Brady who, albeit looks good in pre-season, but he's probably going to get you'll get about 20 games a season out of him before he gets injured. And you've got Brad Potts, who's a centre mid playing at right wing back. So, we're not best pleased at the moment because there's obviously, you've had all summer, you've had way before summer to get prepared for this, to bring in wing backs, and we're going into Sheffield United. I know the window doesn't end, but you're going into, the first 4 games without wing backs, and you're playing up against Sheffield United, who've arguably brought in, Harrison Burrows, a great wing back, and so many foot more. So, yeah, there's been a couple of rumours recently, which is good to get behind. But obviously the additions of Sam Greenwood and Fodanson so far look to be good signings. So hopefully we can continue with a couple more.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about Alan Brown going as well. So yeah, what's your take on that? Because obviously he's he's a bit of a Preston legend, isn't he? He's played a hell of a lot of matches for you, and he's had the armband for a bit now, hasn't he? And he obviously, did they offer him a new contract to the end of the season, which he then turned down, and he's ended up at Sunderland, which I thought, a bit of a sideways move personally. I think obviously, very similar seasons, the pair of you last season. I just wanted to see what your take on that was, what you think.
Yeah. The first time when it was actually announced, I felt kind of sick because I thought, Alan Brown's a one club man and he should remain that. We know he loves the club. We know, he's got his young kids who he's bringing up as Preston North End fans as well. So, in my right mind, he should never have left Preston North End. Obviously, there's been different rumours about why he's left. I think it was quite well known that the contracts that we did offer him, albeit at the start of last season, was abysmal compared to what he wanted. He wanted the same figures as he was on for 3 or 4 more years, but we offered him a pay cut and gave him 2 years. So I think it was a bit of a kick in the teeth if you're Alan Brown. You've been at a club for 10 years. You're giving it your all. You're putting in 7 or 8 out of 10 performances 9 times out of 10. So I think it was a bit of a kick in the teeth for Alan Brown, and I think the more you think about it and the longer you go on, is Preston North End probably the best chance that you got to get at reaching the Premier League. We've got, let's not beat around the bush, we're not. We're a mid-table plodding side at the moment. Obviously with a few additions, maybe we might slip into 6 if we're ever lucky in the upcoming years. But albeit a sideways move, I think Sunderland have a lot better chance than obviously ourselves in being able to take that next step to the Premier League.
Yeah, a bit of a painful one for you guys then. Yeah, just going back to yourself then, Mark. Obviously, we've touched on what you still think you guys need to do in the transfer window. In terms of your expectations for the season. Let's just say that, Eustace is able to bring in a couple more additions. Last season, you obviously stayed up by the skin of your teeth. Eustace did incredibly well, didn't he, to keep you up, really, at the end of the day. What do you think the expectations are for the club this season?
I think Rovers fans are just all so deflated because a couple of years ago we had Thomason's first season, didn't spend very much money, very nearly got in the playoffs. That was a great opportunity for us. It really was. That summer we needed 1 or 2 players, that was it. And they didn't go on and get them. Venky's couldn't spend any money, so we deteriorated. So for the past 4 transfer windows, we've got worse. We now have actually signed 6 players in about 2 days after signing none all window. And we have no idea whether we're better or worse for it right now. I think the key positions, Sam Gallagher, the Rovers fans love him as a person. He's great with the kids, the fans, but he plays a quarter of a season, and when he does, he plays about 5 games at his potential. If you could design a football in the way he looks, it'd be Sam Gallagher. However, he scores against Preston, he scores against Middlesbrough, and that's about it. And he's already injured at Stoke. So there we go. So we were kind of in a position where we've seen enough of him and we've seen enough of Ains the Pairs to go, do you know what? This is just going to be the same again. And I think all Rovers fans kind of said, we're not going to go out and sign a Premier League striker. We know that. We're not going to sign a Premier League goalkeeper, but we were willing to take a gamble. And I think that's what we've done with the striker. And we need to do the same with the goalkeeper because right now he cost us probably 12 points last season. So going into a season with the same goalkeeper, I think we'll same thing again. And we need the Smodic situation resolved. Sammy Smodic had a world-beating season last season. I don't think even he would have expected it. I think realistically, probably get about 15 goals this season. Will be a decent return for him again. It was just one of them where everything he hit went in. And he deserves a chance at the Premier League because he's not going to get another one. He's 29 in a couple of weeks. So fine, but it needs to be done for all parties now because we need that money to be able to spend it. So it's then how you reinvest that. If we use that money and actually reinvest it and you've got £9 million to go and spend, well, actually, you can start, if you spend that well enough, you can start looking at, can we be up and mid-table, potentially on a lucky season, like Oli said? Can we sneak in that 6th position? But I think mid-table, and we, unfortunately, which is terrible in the Championship, isn't it? To be going into a season saying, we'll take mid-table. But I think we probably would right now because we just don't know where we are as a club.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, to kind of truly judge the season that's upcoming until the transfer window closes, isn't it? I think I touched on it at the start. I'm a West Bromwich Albion fan, and we made a couple of additions today, but we're in exactly the same situation in that, in this kind of limbo at the minute where we've sold a few guys, got a bit of money to spend with, but we haven't made those signings yet, and we haven't seen them on the pitch and how they're going to, integrate with the rest of the players and that. On Smodics, is anything kind of getting closer? Because I know Ipswich have been heavily linked with him, but what kind of money are Rovers holding out for? Because a couple of bids been rejected, I think. Or
it's mainly around the structuring of it. I think Ipswich came in early and were a bit cheeky with their first couple of offers. I think all Rovers fans are kind of the same opinion, is that in January, he could be worth $2 million again. You could be looking at a 29-year-old he's not going to be worth any more in January, is he? So he needs to go now for him, for the club. They're talking about 8 million guaranteed, rising to 11, which I think I'd take that. I know some Rovers fans are looking at it saying he scored 33 goals. I'd be taking that all day. He's 29 in a couple of weeks. So they've said that they're haggling now over the upfront payment, and they're about 500 grand apart. So that's going to get done. It's going to get done. So the sooner that gets done, the better. And then apparently we've got targets in mind. The goalkeeper's nearly there, so that will be a good one, hopefully. But I think our first 4 games are so crucial, and they will tell us absolutely where we are. So we've got we start off with Derby at home, and then we've got Oxford at home, the 2 home games, and sandwiched in between, we've got Norwich away and those who shall not be mentioned down the road away. So we'll know where we are then, won't we?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a waiting game then for you to get this Schmodix deal over the line and then start reinvesting that money. Ollie, just coming back to you then, mate. Preston, your expectations. Last season, I personally feel like you had a good season. I know you kind of tailed off in the last quarter of the season or so, maybe a little bit earlier. But I remember that fantastic start you had, and it was 10th place finish, wasn't it? I think the last game of the season, and from an outside perspective looking in, I thought you guys had a good season. But what's the kind of thinking amongst the Preston fans at the minute then?
It's the same old as North End, inconsistency throughout the season. We've had an absolutely fantastic start, and then in the middle of the season, we've gone we've won 5 games in 23, and it's not good enough. It's relegation form. So, you've got, promotion form to relegation form to, we're going to sneak in the playoffs, to absolutely falling off a cliff in the last 5 games, I should say. So, it's consistency. But I also think as well, when Preston North End get to, the nitty gritty of, we need to win these sorts of games to be able to push towards the playoffs, we just don't do it. I'm not too sure if it's a mentality thing. I'm not too sure if it's anything. We just seem to fall away always around about March time. I'm not too sure what it is. I know Mark might be horrible saying this, but it's the same for Rovers in some sense. Sometimes you start off brilliantly, and then we always just seem to fall off coming into the business part of the season.
I think a lot of it kind of comes down to maybe squad depth for these mid-table, bottom half championship teams. Latter stages of the league, it all starts to kind of catch up with everyone a bit, doesn't it? And squad depth then plays a really important role. And
that's the way. It's a positive pod, this really, isn't it? But you
got to give me your finishes in a bit. So we'll see. Yeah. But
expecting us to, I'd like to see us push top half. If we manage to bring in the players that we're speaking of bringing in, obviously the 2 wing backs, left wing back and right wing back, and then a wide centre half. I personally think we need 2 wide centre halves to play the system. If we manage to get the 3 in and hope maybe, try for a 4th later on in the window, then I can see us pushing top half. And then obviously if you're in that top 10 going into the last, 6 or 7 games of the season, it's anyone's game for who can sneak in the top 6. But as of right now, I can't see us anywhere near that.
Yeah, goals were a bit of a difficulty, weren't they, for you guys last season? Obviously, with Blackburn, that wasn't an issue with Schmodix banging them in. But I was having a look earlier, and I think it was Keane who finished top goal scorer for you guys on about 11, 12, was it? And but then I was just Reece is probably your number 1 striker, and he was injured from what I remember quite a bit last season. Is he kind of fit and ready to go this season?
Yeah, he came back in. Obviously, he did an ACL injury, and I thought 9 times out of 10 for a player, that's them done. Realistically, they'll lose their legs, everything. But he came back and he looked better than he ever did, which is quite a surprise to see. Obviously, after coming off such a bad injury, I think he went on a streak of 5 and 6 games. And you're blown away a bit by it. Obviously, now he's coming down to his last 12 months of his contract. We don't know whether he's going to stay. We don't know whether he's going to go. But the last thing we need is Emil Reece to be running down his contract like we have done with, Alan Brown and players like before. Because, the pivotal players, there needs to be a regime that, if they're not going to sign on with 12 months to go, they need to be sold. Yeah. You've got to bring some income in somehow, because realistically, you look at FFP, I know North End say we pay the bucks, but you're not going to be able to bring in the better players if you just sign players and let them run down the contracts to the end, and then they walk for a free. Then you're having to replace them with another 2 million and another 2 million and another 2 million. Yeah. It's unfeasible as a club. But crazily enough, going to your goal scoring thing, I actually think that being able to bring in players wide centre halves and wing backs will actually make us score more, because there's so much of a gap between our defence, midfield, and attack that the front three were so isolated last season, and the defence and midfield were so flat. If you're able to bring in players that are able to bridge the gap between obviously the three different areas, you go score more. So for me, if you shore up the defence and bring in players who can actually play with the ball at the back, you'll score more up front because more chances are being created. Osmajic, he's not played much. He scored 8, but for the amount of chances he had compared to how many goals he scored, I think he was one of the best in the league. So you create chances. You've got strikers in Reece and Osmajic who can clearly put them in the back of the net. You just need to create more chances for them.
You reckon then a couple of kind of decent additions in those areas you just mentioned, and then goals will start coming a little bit more frequently. Playoff push potentially if you fill those gaps. Do you think?
It depends. Realistically, if you give the best players the freedom to play, and there has been rumours of this guy from Slavia Prague, Konrad Wallum, a Norwegian left wing back, and after a 5-minute YouTube display, he's clearly the best left wing back in the world. So you bring in these types of players. I think if looking abroad, you get better quality, better bang for your buck. So fingers crossed. You get a couple more decent players who we've got Mads Frokjar, we've got Militon Osmajic, who I think are 2 great additions. You've got Stefan Fordanson, who could be a good addition. You just need 3 or 4 more, and if they're good enough for a top half side, then who knows?
Yeah. Well, I thought you made a good point. I see what Martin's on. It seems I don't know about you guys, but it seems to be more and more players running down their contracts, and the free agent market just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and more important, especially I think to sides in the Championship. As each season passes, I don't know what your guys' take is on that, but I don't know. It seems to me not that long ago, there didn't seem to be many kind of free agents floating around at the end of the season. But now that it just seems to always be a big pool of them, and it always seems to be quite quite vital for teams in the Championship as well. I feel in terms of kind of plucking players from there. But all right, you might be getting players for free, but then you're probably paying big wages to tempt them, aren't they? It seems to be a real kind of different look to the transfer windows these days to what there was maybe going back, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons ago.
I think player power. Go on.
Yeah, because I was just going to say we've been bitten with that. We had a summer after COVID. We refused to put any contracts down during that period of time, and it left us where we lost our captain Lenahan, we lost Brereton Diaz, we lost Rothwell, Nyambit, all key players for absolutely nothing. Now, part of the problem there was Venky's. With Rothwell and Diaz, they were given offers that were pretty decent in January on both of them, and we were 7th, 8th, sort of within touching distance of the playoffs. So they refused them and then let them run down. When we had Greg Broughton come in as a director of football a couple of years ago, his big thing was we will not let players who are worth money to this football club leave for nothing. So the only 2 it's happened with are actually Dolan and Gallagher, who had an option last season. So they've extended both. Gallagher clearly wasn't going to renew his contract, so they've sold him. Now, Dolan's still there, but Dolan we would get some compensation for because of his age. So I think that's possibly the only reason. But there's, contract's been on the table with him. I think he thinks he's good enough to play in the Premier League. He needs to become very, very consistent if he thinks that, because he's 1 in 13 games he might be, but the rest he's not. Yeah.
I also think player power is a big thing. Or maybe not just North End, but around the clubs. Players, they, as you mentioned there, believe they can play Premier League football, and they'll be more than happy just to allow themselves to run down the contract. You see Jack Rodwell at Sunderland refused to leave because he thought he was better than the club, and just trained. Realistically, there needs to be a model like the Peterborough manager has. Is if you refuse to sign a contract, you put right in the window, you're transfer listed from the summer. So, but then again, when players do speak to clubs, a club's not going to really come in with 12 months left of the deal if the players made it true to them that, they're not going to sign another contract and they can just pick them up on a free next year. So I think player power is a big thing, and they've got to figure out a way to be able to. I think Peterborough's owners got it the best way that, you've got to get some money for your players. You just put them up in the shop window if they're refusing to get a contract in 12 months ago, because once it gets down to the final 10 months, player power can just absolutely take the wind.
Yeah. Do you know what? For all the fault behind the scenes at Rovers, they seem to have got that right now. They really do. So they sort of look at the 18-month mark, and if you're not signing a new deal, or 24 months, they try and redo it. They've got quite a clear structure in terms of the salaries, so the young players are not overpaid. But their advantage of being at Blackburn is we will give you a pathway to the first team. It's worked with some of them, but then we've just lost Rory Finneran to Newcastle because, he's sat in a changing room where somebody's on 15 grand a week at age 16 and our players are on £1,000. But which one do you want to do? Do you want to play football or, it's so Rovers what they're not doing is offering lengthy contracts anymore. We've burnt with Daniel Ayala, 3-year deal when he was 31 and he played about 3 games for 3 years. So they've got a clear structure. Not all the fans agree with it at times. It's cost us signings because we've said we're not signing you on that deal. We're sticking to our wage budget, but I actually don't mind it because it's better than being, players just running the contracts down. It really is.
Yeah. I think, it's. I just think whilst the Premier League still seems to be spending billions and billions, I do definitely feel the kind of transfer market as a whole has changed quite considerably in the Championship, in that, those parachute payments are even more evident nowadays, aren't they? Teams that come down are the only ones that seem to actually splash a bit of cash, and the rest of the division are kind of, looking at the free market and loan deals, aren't they? Loan deals have become incredibly important, haven't they, for Championship teams these days? So, moving on from players that haven't turned up yet to players that we have got. We've been asking the guests who've coming on, who do you think your star man is? Who do you think is going to be your most important player, for the upcoming season? And also a player, that's maybe one to watch, maybe one that's not kind of, necessarily caught the eye yet, who you think might kind of step up this season and make a bit of a name for himself. So, I'll come to you first, Mark.
I'm going to go with, I'll ignore Smodics because for the purpose of this, he's probably gone by the time we finish the pod. But Maktar Gay is come in. He sounds big and powerful, and Ollie will know all about this. They absolutely bullied us off the park at Ewood last year. It was described as men against boys, and it was embarrassing. And that's something we've not been. Eustace has made us really hard to beat, and he's brought in some players who are completely different to what we've not had. We've got both sides of the game now. So for him, he's got to be the number 9 that we've needed for a number of years. So I'll say Maktar Gay. In terms of one to keep an eye on, we have a young lad we had 2 16-year-olds. One was Rory Finneran, who's gone to Newcastle. The other was Igor Tijon, who we ironically pinched from Rochdale a year ago. And he signed a new deal. Apparently they've had to, give him a bit of dough for it. But he's 16. He's been training with the first team and playing in the pre-season games. So he'll not be starting, but he'll be in and around it. And he's played for both Poland and England at youth levels, both very recently within the last year, and scores goals. So everyone who sees him is really impressed. So he could be one that could really like us, relatively speaking.
Yeah, sounds quite highly rated then. What position does he play then?
Striker.
He's a striker as well. Okay. All right. Good. Sounds promising then, definitely. Ollie, then what about yourself? Kind of key player for Preston this season, and then, someone who you think, again, kind of might make a bit of a name for themselves.
Key player, Mads Frockia. Clearly got the most ability out of the squad. I don't think going a year back, anyone should be able to wear low socks and play for Preston North End. But, here we are. He's brilliant. When he's on it, he's one of the most creative midfielders in the league. I think he's superb We just need to give him the freedom to play, because I feel like the style of play that we are playing at the moment limits him quite a lot. But you can tell he's got the most quality out of anyone in the squad. And obviously, as you mentioned, one to look out for. I've said before, if you give Militon Osmajic, chances, he's going to score. I mean, if he's given the game time and he's given the chances, I have no doubts it'll be hitting double figures. I've got him up as high as 15 for the season in all comps, which, for a North End striker, we've not really had an out-and-out striker who's really, got the goals as much as, Mark has with Schmodic. North End haven't really had one like that. He's kind of been spaced out. So I feel if he's given the game time, given him the chances, he'll score. So Militant.
Do you think he's going to get the game time ahead of Reece and Keane then this season? Do you reckon he's...
I don't see how he's going to play Keane in the box midfield, because we've brought in Sam Greenwood, who's come on loan with an option from Leeds, and we're playing Mads kind of just in the 10 off the left, playing Sam Greenwood in the 10 off the right, and then we're playing a sole 9. And Will Keane's not a sole 9 at all. He's more of a shadow striker who likes to play off someone. So I'm not too sure how it's going to suit him unless he plays, in one of the 10s going off on the right. But I just don't think that's a position for him. So I think we'll see quite a bit from Will Keane off the bench. But, he's in the last 12 months of contract. We only signed him on a 2-year deal from Wigan for, I think, pennies, if anything. I think Osmajic has got a real chance. If he's able to, if Reece doesn't start off the season well, and if he is still here, I think Osmajic can, nick in there and see what he can do.
Okay, brilliant. Well, yeah, moving on then to the first game of the season. Obviously, things kick off Friday evening. First of all, what do you think about starting the season on a Friday evening? It's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? Well, Sky have just seemed to have the fixtures absolutely all over the place, don't they, this season? So, yeah, Friday night start. We'll start with you, Mark. Because you've got two obviously quite different matches as well to get the season up and running. Blackburn, you've obviously got newly promoted Derby for your opening fixture. I'd be thinking the majority of Blackburn fans would be looking at 3 points here, to get the season up and running against a newly promoted team. I know Derby are a big club and got a big fan base, been in the Championship not too long ago, obviously in the Championship. But yeah, how are you feeling going into that opener?
I don't mind the Friday night game, if I'm being honest. I'm more of a fan of that than the 12:30 away at Norwich on a Saturday at dinner, but and apparently some Thursday games that's going to be played. But I'm fearful. I am very fearful because, like you say, Rovers fans will be turning up thinking, newly promoted team, it's got to be 3 points, hasn't it, this? And then you go into Norwich and things like that. And if we go a goal behind, the fans are not particularly happy right now. Yeah. They're not happy with the owners. They're not happy with the regime. So I'm just fearful that it could go very wrong very early, and then it could be an awfully long season. Hopefully it's 3 points. There's no reason, player-wise, I don't think, why that you can't go and beat Derby at home. Yeah. But equally, it is a recipe for disaster, I would say.
Yeah, interestingly, because I think Derby have been churning out some real poor performances in pre-season. I know what we were saying at the start. I know we were saying, pre-season, it's obviously about getting the fitness down and stuff. But I saw a clip. I think their fans were proper kind of having a right go at the team and the manager off the back of one of their pre-season performances. So, yeah, you got to hope, I guess, as well that they're maybe not in the best of places, and yeah, you can kickstart the season with a win. Oli then, yeah. So yeah, whilst Blackburn have got a newly promoted team, you've got Sheffield United, obviously, come down from the Premier League. They had obviously terrible time of things, didn't they, in the Premier League last season? But I think they're going to be strong. Personally, they've made some good additions, haven't they? Yeah, how are you feeling about going into that opener?
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, they've made some great additions. Obviously, Kiefer Moore, who loves to score about 18 goals a game against us. It's Sam Gallagher and Kiefer Moore who just love scoring against Preston North End. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing Kiefer Moore run away celebrating for his second goal. I think you're coming up against a side who've not really lost too many players come down from the Premier League. They've added well. They've brought in Harrison Burrows, who obviously we were after in the paper talk. And, they've brought in Kiefer Moore. They've brought in several other players.
Callum O'Hare, wasn't it? He was another
one
from Coventry. Yeah, I saw they've signed Harry Suter today from Leicester as well on loan, which is another good addition at this level, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a long 90 minutes. It's going to be 90 minutes. The only chance I can see North End having is if they manage to stay in a low block for at least 80 minutes and then try and do them on the counter. But I can't see that at all. I'm expecting us to lose. Anything other than a loss, I'd be very happy with. I'd be very happy with a point. I'd take your hand off for a point right now. We just got to see how it pans out. But I'm not too optimistic going into Friday. But yeah, as Mark mentioned, I'm not too fussed about, Friday night games at home at 7:45. Sheffield's not too far away. I think, they're going to fill it out, finish at 5 p.m. and just get across on the motorway. But it's the same type of games at like 7:45 away at Reading. I remember. Cheers, nice one for that.
Sometimes playing these teams early you kind of can catch them out, can't you? Sometimes maybe at home, opening game, home crowd behind you. That's what you're hoping that's what plays out, aren't you? But I think they're going to have. I think. So another question I was going to move on to was, who you guys who do you fancy for promotion in the Championship? We obviously touched on Sheffield United, teams that come down, Burnley. They've obviously brought in Scott Parker. He's obviously got a couple of promotions to his name. They've spent some big money as well. I didn't realise how much money Burnley have spent already in this window. And Luton, who I think are the opposite. They haven't really done much in the transfer window, but like you said, kept hold of majority of their players. Leeds as well. A lot of people talking Leeds up. Who do you guys think are going to be kind of up there? Do you think we're going to have a situation like last season where you had kind of three teams kind of run away with it, didn't they, really? Or do you think we're going to have maybe a bit of more of a even fight at the top of the table in the Championship this year?
I think all the teams you've mentioned there, they'll be in and around it. I'd add Coventry into that mix as well.
Yeah.
I think well. I can see that being the top six, to be fair. I can't really think of any other teams that you can probably fit into that top six. Maybe, West Brom, if they get a couple more players, obviously that'll probably make you happy, Tom. They're always in and around it if they had a few more additions, but I can't really see any other teams pushing their way into it.
Yeah. Yourself, Mark?
Very similar, to be fair. I think Coventry have steadily built, haven't they? They've reinvested their money really well. They're almost a model club for the likes of Blackburn and Preston, really, in terms of selling high and then reinvesting really well. I think when you're signing players like Callum O'Hare, I saw an interview with the manager the other day at Sheffield United, and he was saying we've not got enough depth yet, and we've lost quite a lot of goals. Yeah, I think he's
taking the mickey,
just trying to take a bit of pressure off. I think Luton will be up there. They've not really lost anybody. And you've mentioned them, so I suppose we'll have to touch on them. But yeah, they spent 140 million last year. It didn't do them that much good last year, did it? So let's see how they get on this year. I'm sure they'll have a lovely cardigan range out for Christmas, so that might help the coffers for January.
Yeah, he's already won probably most slick manager award, hasn't he, for the Championship? Scott Parker, he loves it.
But then Leeds, to be fair, have kept some consistency, haven't they? Which is what Leeds never do. I know there's obviously the age-old adage that they absolutely fell apart again last year, but you would say surely not this year. They've kept that consistency. They've lost some of them, but they'll reinvest it, won't they? So I think Leeds could run away with it.
Well, yeah. So we've been. We've had previously. We've been finishing off with kind of prediction from yourselves as to where you think you're going to finish? I know it's, obviously a lot of this chat's been about, gaps you still need to fill and transfers, that you're hoping to make still. And it's difficult, isn't it, to kind of give a proper solid prediction before that transfer window slams shut. But yeah, I'm going to ask you anyways. I'm going to put you on the spot. Come to yourself then, Mark. With Blackburn, what's your prediction then for the season?
I've seen a lot of people tipping Blackburn to go down, probably based on the fact we struggled last year, and Thomason felt there's lots of reasons for that. Thomason played some of the best football I've seen at Blackburn, and he was very, very stubborn. I almost likened him to Vincent Kompany in the Premier League with Burnley, in a way of it was all about himself. He was trying to make himself and build a style of football where people could go, oh, if you gave him better players, wouldn't he be a great manager? Well, actually, do the best with what you've got. And what Eustace has done, I've not been a big fan of the way he's played so far, but it was necessity. What he's done is he's given us players now and a way of playing that if we are at home to Derby and they decide to sit in a low block, we have got those players. We still need to add to it, but you've got those players. But equally, we just used to get bullied by Preston, by other teams. So what he's done is give us some experience and some big, strong players who will not be dominated in that way. So we'll be a threat from set pieces. So we can mix it up. So I don't think it was the most glamorous of seasons. I think probably 14th.
Okay. Interesting. Ollie, yourself, mate?
Yeah. Glamour's not really the word you can use between Rovers and Preston North End, really. I think, I'll probably give you two answers here. If we stay how we are, we'll probably be about 16th if we don't manage to bring in, the decent incomings. But then again, you could shoot up and potentially be 10th with the right incoming. So I'll stick in the middle. I'll go about 12th or 13th place. The absolute live wire of the Championship, battling out with Bristol City for who's going to be on top in the mid-table derby. Same old year. We'll still be here. I don't have any doubts about down or going up. So
it's interesting you say that. Do you think kind of there are teams kind of both you guys, Blackburn. I know obviously you were in a bit of a relegation fight last season, but prior to then, obviously Preston and Blackburn have always kind of finished around that mid-table, and it kind of gets poked fun at, doesn't it? But it's not the worst thing, is it? I don't think, Championship football. I think Championship's fantastic, division, and to kind of be kind of playing trade there, consistently, as each season comes along, and not really getting in any kind of relegation fight, obviously, other than last season with Blackburn. Yeah, I think sometimes it gets kind of poked fun at when it shouldn't necessarily. I don't know what you guys think, it being your teams. Do you think it's fair, people poking fun at it? Or, do you think you should take pride in that, you're kind of solid, mid-table Championship teams, teams look at likes of Palace and stuff in the Premier League, don't they? And think, well, they're a solid mid-table Premier League team, and it's kind of look favourably, whereas teams that do that in the Championship isn't. And I've always kind of found that a bit odd.
I'd agree with it in certain terms. If there was a model around your club and you can see how, the club's got an idea to progress, to, make that challenge, you'd be fine with mid-table. As long as you can see that you're building. If you can't see that you're building and there's nothing there, we're just plodding along, that's when it becomes tedious. I'd much rather, finish mid-table and know, you know what, we're building something. We've got a real chance next season. Because you look at Palace, as you mentioned, that, albeit mid-table, but they've brought in a model. They've brought in players like Elise, Eze, etc. They've done fantastically well, and I think, they'll be pushing further and further up the league. So as long as you got a model and you're not plodding along and just trying to survive, I think, you can't go wrong with mid-table sometimes. But when you're doing the other, it's very, very tedious.
Yeah, I think I was spot on there. Football's about hope, isn't it? And that's why the Championship's good, because you can go to any game and genuinely see a way your team can win. Whereas in the Premier League, there's nothing more depressing than going away to City and thinking, please don't be 5 or 6. That's just not what anyone wants. But you've got to see some way of progressing. You've got to feel like, you've got to go into a season hoping and thinking, well, if we have a really good season, we could sneak in the playoffs. I think that's the problem that Rovers fans have got at this moment in time. The last couple of years, they had that, and they don't quite see that way forward right now.
Interesting, yeah. Well, look, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Just keeping an eye on the time. Just want to say first and foremost, obviously, thank you very much for coming on as well and being my first guest hosting as well. It's been top stuff. Really enjoyed chatting to you guys. So yeah, really appreciate it. And we'd love to get you guys on at a point, through the season, once, got a few games out the way with, and we've, made all these signings that we're all going to make at the end of this window, got a better idea of things. So yeah, we'd love to obviously have you guys back on, but I'm going to leave it there, guys. Just a quick thank you saw a few people dropping in live. So yeah, big thumbs up. Thank you for dropping in and giving us a watch. And then obviously anyone who catches up with this on the YouTube channel. But from myself, thank you very much, and thanks again, guys, for joining in tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
This is where I said to you, Mark, this is where I'm going to get it wrong with the outro bit.
I was just going to say you've done fantastically well. So
I know, and now I'm scratching around with my notes to find the last bit. So I want to hit outro. See you later. Cheers, guys. Thank you.